And after your sort of stint in the Formula One world and whatever, you head over stateside. So you went to go and try and do a bit of IndyCar, or you not try and do, you did a bit of IndyCar, a couple of Indy 500s. Having been out there only to race for the first time end of last year in Sebring, just in an IMSA race, it was the most fun I think I've had ever racing a car, to be honest with you. So how was that IndyCar experience? Firstly, we'll talk about the IndyCar, the normal road courses, the car itself, and then talk us through the Indy 500, man, because that'd just be awesome.
Well, go back to the car. It's a really cool car. Is up there in the top couple of cars I've driven. I think the only thing that just lets it down is the weight. But they kind of have to have the weight from all the safety side of things they have for the ovals. You know, you take a hammer to the side pod of a Formula One car and it would disintegrate into 1,000 bits. You take a hammer to the side of an Indy car and the hammer breaks. You know, they're solid bits. You know, what you see them in the race, they're like bouncing into each other like touring cars, but they're single seaters. And I remember it was driver coach of the team said to me, he said, "Oh, as long as you get them sideways enough, it'll be fine and they'll bounce off you." And it was the first race of the year in St. Pete, and I was in second in the race. Wickens was leading, and Rossi was just trying to overtake me. He went around the outside into what had been about turn 4, and he was ahead. And that under braking, I just, in the back of my mind was Lee just saying, "As long as it's pod to pod, you'll be all right." So I just came off the brake and just and
hazard him.
Carried on in second. But like the stewards didn't care. It was fine. Like, it was racing. Where you look in F1 now, it's like as soon as they get side by side, there's penalties flying left, right, and centre. So it was a much more relaxed racing environment. Cars were good to drive. They were pretty bulletproof from that standpoint. And yeah, the racing was good. And everyone's much more friendly. Like, you go to like a driver's signing interview, and it was the first weekend I'd ever been there. You know, it's like Scott Dixon came up and he's like, "All right, how's it going?" You know, having a chat. "Oh, first weekend," all that. And then I sat next to Will Power and he was the same. You know, these guys have been there for years and won championships and stuff. And then, you know, then I think back to like my Formula One days. I never went to one driver's briefing in an F1 paddock where anyone who'd been there for more than like 2 years said hello to me. And it was just like, you just felt isolated and like you were kind of treading on their feet. Where you go to America, everyone's just happy. And the fans are happy to see you. They're like grateful that you've even blessed them over your presence to be alive when you turn up at a racetrack. So it's just like a really chilled, nice environment. They don't have all of the big awnings with all the boards, and you know, they turn up with like 2 or 3 trucks. You're in a tent. Most of the tracks don't have garages. So yeah, from that side of things, it was mega. On the other side, maybe it was a bit too relaxed. We had some things go wrong with the car where you just think that really shouldn't have gone wrong with the car. If you just spent kind of 10 more minutes on the car, it wouldn't have gone wrong, sort of thing. So yeah, it's both ends of it. But actually, from experience, you know, I lived there for a year as well. It was a cool life experience. I'd like to still be racing in the championship, but
it's difficult again to get the right sponsorship and get the right deals and whatever, because in IndyCar, from the outside anyway, you always see either you're with Penske, Ganassi, Andretti, yeah, those 3 that probably have sponsors that come to the actual team and then they provide the driver, or all the drivers are bringing some sort of big sponsorship deal or backing from somewhere. It seems they're all brilliant drivers, don't get me wrong, and probably all getting paid, but they might be taking a cut off the sponsorship, not necessarily getting paid by.
It's no different to the way the rest of the motorsport world works, really. And yeah, even some really good drivers, when you kind of knock on the door and start asking questions, and you thought one deal was maybe better than you'd expect, and actually it turns out that even that really good driver is having to find his own budget from somewhere, you know, or has helped the situation to get that money over the line, and certain things like that. And it just makes it difficult. But at the end of the day, it's a sport that is expensive. It's like polo. It's expensive to go racing. And
polo expensive?
Man, you have no idea how expensive those horses are.
Oh, really? Am I really like naive here.
Well out of touch.
Not quite in the quite the right level of British aristocracy to
Right, full Brummie I'm being right now, and I
not in the market for a polo horse.
Yeah, you're not in the market for.
thought that was a car. Never heard of the sport before.
And so, I mean, IndyCar itself, I would love to drive one. I think it's brilliant. I think the cars look mega. I was there in Indy as well, at the street circuit, when they were doing a race last year, when we were doing an endurance race, and it looks mega. We looked round RLL, because obviously they run the M8 for BMW as well. So we know the guys there, and it looked super cool. But another thing I wouldn't be so keen on, I haven't ever done it, so you need to enlighten me on how wild it was super speedways, so Indy 500. Obviously not just driving the car at 230, 240 miles an hour average, but the experience of the whole week. What was it like?
Well, literally, as you said that, and then I started thinking about it, like I did get shivers again. Like it's a cool experience, and it's a mental thing to do. If you just took the average Joe, put him in a car, like it's hard enough to drive these cars anyway. But once you kind of get going, you could drive around a normal circuit and you'd get around. It might take you 10 minutes, but you could get around it. When you go on the super speedways, it's, even for myself, who's done a lot and driven for a long time in my life, it's like you're a duckling in water again. Like you're just learning how to swim. And your perception of speed is just wrong. Whatever you've thought is quick in the past, it's just wrong. And then once you get to a point that you're now comfortable and you're doing pretty well, and you've done like your first full lap flat, and you're like, I am now the world's greatest racing driver. I've done one lap flat. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to do 200 of those in a race. So yeah, you've got yourself like a couple of days in, and the team were really good. They like coached me through it all. And I'd been there the year before with ECR, so I followed them everywhere. I was in all the meetings, I watched everything, spoke to everyone about it, so I kind of knew what to expect. And then the team still coached me through it, which was RLR. And they always isolate you on the track to start off with, and you always have a little bit more downforce on. But the first time they send you out in the pack with low downforce, you've just been thrown into a whirlpool without a paddle, and you're just so I came out, and then the spotter is just like, hey, you can go high. So I've slotted into the train, and no joke, within a lap and a half I was at the back of the train. All 15 cars have overtaken me. Like, it was just
what is going on
then?
Yeah.
I was like, do you want me to come in and we'll try again? That was
so how on edge are the cars? Like, because obviously when you watch them on TV, you see the small sort of steering movements that are going on, but you can't really.
Well, the way the cars are set up now, they've changed the aero package over the years. So if I was to talk you through my qualifying lap, so this is out of traffic, and the wind changes direction, and all the corners are supposed to be the same, but they're all just slightly different. And the wind at 240 miles an hour, the wind plays even more of a difference. You both know that a headwind can change your brake zone by 10 meters.
Yeah, sure.
Well, a headwind at 240 mile an hour changes everything massively, like how much you even have to just turn into the corner. And the cars are normally set up to want to go left. So if you've got a decent enough headwind, you almost don't have to turn for the corner. You just kind of half let go, just apply a little bit of weight, and it just goes through. I remember the first like 5 laps of a race run we did in a train, and I was knackered. Like, my neck was hanging off, like my legs, my glutes, my arms everything was hurting. And I came in, I was like, just give me 5 minutes. I need to reassess. And they were just like, just relax. And it becomes the weirdest thing ever, because obviously everything's locked in, but you just become like a blob in the car. And the only thing that you're moving is your hands and your feet. Yeah. So you do everything from your ankles, and you don't support yourself at all. So you just end up like into the car. Strangest thing.
Do you get like a special seat, mate?
8G. So you need a really strong seat around you, and you just let yourself. And like a seat that you can hardly move in when you're sitting in the pits. Once you're going around the corner, you can like get your hand down the side of your rib cage and the seat. Like that's how much you compress yourself into the side of the seat.
Well, do you get like a special seat for that race? Like maybe more on one side or not?
Some people do a little bit. The world's greatest saving grace that they have in IndyCar is a carbon like center board that goes in between your legs, so your legs can't move. So rather than like they do in F1, put pads and stuff, there's just your legs can't move. So it actually really saves your hips. I know it sounds something stupid, but because your legs can't move, you never have to like switch your core on and your hips on to hold your legs in place. So you can literally just move your ankles and like job's good.
Yeah.
And do they keep that in for the street courses as well, or is that just for the Indy 5?
No, they do. It's so bumpy on the street courses as well. It's like you want to.
There's me thinking it was just 4 corners to turn left.
Yeah, well, so on my qualifying lap, turn 1 was pretty neutral. So let's say turn 1 was the 0 point. So turn 1 was 0 point, but turn 2 had a world's worst crosswind through it. So you had the most serious oversteer. Just it was around every time through there. It was the corner Hinch crashed on his qualifying lap. But every time through there, you were just like, I'm gonna crash, I'm gonna crash, I'm gonna crash, and you'd like get through and you'd be like, whew, I made it. So no, you go through turn 1, no changes for argument's sake. But then you'd have like preset on the dash what you wanted to do with like the weight jacker and the bars. So in the short shoot, which is no more than probably like 0.1 of a second, you're like pressing the buttons on the steering wheel to change how much weight jacker you've got to go to the left, and then going softer on the rear bar to try and settle the rear down. But then as you come out, you have to collapse the weight jacker, because if you collapse the weight jacker, the rear drops down, you're quicker down the straight. So you come out of like turn 2, and basically you get to the point that you're like, I'm not going to hit the wall, and you like press the button to collapse the weight jack. And if you get it wrong, you just slide up into the wall because you just lose the downforce. So that's why you see when people just look like they stupidly just hit the wall, you're like, why do they do that? But that's because it was decided like 300 meters ago, and there's nothing you can do to like, you can't just put a bit of extra lock in and like you and I would on a normal road course. You can't just go, I'll just turn a little bit more, it'll be all right. Like you just, that's your trajectory. Do you remember Alonso spanked it into the wall, but like massively, like really hard?
Yeah.
He just judged it. He just got it wrong, and he thought he had more grip than he did, and and there's nothing you can do.
No.
So then turn 3 was the highest top speed. We were about 242 miles an hour on turning into turn 3. But you'd have an understeer turning, but then it would grip up because you'd pick up a bit of a front headwind through turn 3. So you turn in, you'd wind the lock on, you go, oh, this is not good, but I've got to keep it pinned, And then, you've got to remember to re-engage the weight jacker when you get to the corner, otherwise that's game over as well. So yeah, you go with this understeer, and then suddenly it grips, you have to like wind the lock off. But then into the next one, you've got a massive front end on the way in, but then understeer, but it was 2 points on the way in. So you then have to go back softer again on the rear on the way into the corner, but then collapse the weight jacker even earlier mid-corner. So you then lose the rear grip before it understeers up high. And then you just do that 4 times. It's like so much going on.
What the hell?
And then like one lap round, I had a little bit too much understeer here. And like watching the speed traces is pretty much just a flat line with like a couple of dips. And you're looking at like 0.1 of a mile an hour as a difference of speed between like myself and Takuma Sato. And you're like, where's the time? And you just can't see it.
No, it's all that little tiny little feeling kind of thing, isn't it? It's a completely mad feeling. And we could talk about, I'm sure, for hours, particularly between us three, because obviously myself and Jake have never done it before. So it's something that, just to experience that, we're going to have a few bike rides and coffees and then maybe come back on here.
Not with him, he's an Ironman.
He's an Ironman. That's all right. Well, he can go on a mountain bike then.